fadeaway with a hand in his face in the air for the win! Yes, sir! Garnett gives Minnesota the win at Target Center!
Towns rebound, lets it fly, and Karl Anthony Towns drills it at the buzzer! A catastrophic finish for the Grizzlies!
Welcome to the Everything's Coming Up Timberwolves podcast, your home for the best Wolves talk around.
Wiggins spots up there, deep threes, got it! He scores it at the buzzer to give the Timberwolves the victory!
Welcome into another Everything's Coming Up Timberwolves podcast. My name is Gabe Anderson, and it's Victory Friday, ladies and gentlemen, because I guess I should say Victory Saturday, because that's when you'll be hearing it, but it is a victory for the Timberwolves over the Oklahoma City Thunder. They get the win, and here to break it down with me is Jared Good. Jared, how you doing?
For the first time in a couple weeks, we don't have to say status quo as a Timberwolves fan. We got a W, so we got some positivity to bring to this podcast, and I'm looking forward to it. So I'm good as always.
Awesome. Also, we didn't get one, but we got 2 wins this week. We went 2-2 this week, and probably should have went 3-1 or maybe 4-0 this week. But we'll talk about this. Also joining me, Chris Emerson. Chris, how's it going?
Lovely day, lovely day.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. Well, as I think we got to start with the game at hand. Minnesota Timberwolves, they beat, as Jared was saying before the podcast, basically the Summer League squad of 2 years ago for the Oklahoma City Thunder. They beat the likes of Al Horford, Diallo, Mike Muscala. I believe that the Thunder only had 8 players available to them tonight, but in the end, the Timberwolves got the victory. So let's start with you, Chris. What were some of your takeaways from tonight's win?
You know, some of the biggest takeaways I took was we played poorly. We shot bad. We didn't look good. We would go in a spurt and then give them easy buckets. It wasn't a very good game for us, but I think it might have been the last straw for some positional guys. Some role players are stepping up over guys like hopefully his ankle's fine. It looked like a little tweak, but Jalen Noel looked good in the second half before he went down. They moved him in, and he was playing with some of the starters earlier before the bench unit guys came in. McDaniels started the second half. He had a crazy stat line, 0 points, but a plus 20 and plus minus, which
I saw that, yeah.
I don't always love plus minus, but because you could be playing against starters or bench, but when you're playing a team like this OKC squad where everybody's all kind of bench guys, I feel like it's a decent look into how he played. Nas battled. Nas played good. Like, the guys that you didn't think were going to be stars are really stepping up, and that was good. But overall, I mean, I'll take a win, but it was about as ugly as a win could get.
Yeah, it was pretty ugly. And one other guy that I wanted to bring up, Jake Layman. He had a pretty good outing tonight. I mean, he hit 2 threes, and ended with 10 points, a plus 7, and really the bench overall I thought played pretty well. But Jared,
Jake Layman can play.
Yeah,
Jake Layman can play.
Yeah, I think there's a reason that we brought him in here to part of this nucleus, part of Rosas' plan. Jared, what were some of your takeaways from tonight's game?
Yeah, so tonight's game, I think my biggest takeaway was in the second half, we saw D'Lo shoot the ball with confidence. I mean, he came out and he was shooting threes and shooting well in the second half anyways. I didn't catch a whole lot of the first half, but I did watch the whole second half. But I think my biggest thing is we're going to talk about Jake Layman a little bit later on. I can almost promise you that. But that dude's played incredible almost all week. And I think my biggest thing with Layman is we have so many guys on our team that cannot shoot, and we want to play fast, shoot threes, and that's how the Timberwolves want to play. and Layton fits that mold. Surprisingly to me, what I've seen from him this week is that dude can jump out of the gym. So I'm pretty impressed with Layman this week. But my biggest takeaway is D'Lo gaining confidence and hopefully adding Cat back this week.
Yep.
But we'll have to be patient with that, I think.
Yeah, and I hate to say it again and again for the Timberwolves, but I think the solution to a lot of their problems is just to have Cat back and have D'Lo and Cat and Beasley playing alongside together. Now, something interesting from this game, and we kind of touched on it this week. First of all, I mean, we wouldn't have needed that last second three from D'Angelo Russell if Josh Okogie doesn't miss a wide open dunk. That's the first part of it. Second of all, Josh Okogie is benched in the second half, and it was kind of an interesting move by Ryan Saunders, one that I agree with. But let's start with you, Jared. What's kind of your take on the benching of Josh Okogie and kind of a different thing, something that we don't see too much from Ryan Saunders? What was kind of your take on that?
Yeah. So, if you've listened to previous podcasts of ours, we always say that Chris likes to put the GM hat on. Okay, well, I like to put the coaching hat on. And this is something that we have talked about as a whole, even talked about McDaniels in person replacing Okogie at the 3, which is what happened tonight, essentially. And yeah, I mean, he might have played a little bit of 4, but Okogie, there was a point in the game. So I remember watching this game. Okogie gets into the paint and he stops. And he stops and he's in the paint for like 2 or 3 seconds. I was worried that he was going to get 3 seconds. Yeah, so he stops in the paint with like 3 seconds left, or he was in the paint for forever.
Yeah.
And you know what he's doing? He throws up a shot. He gets his shot sent back by, I believe it was Roby. And Nas happens to stumble into the ball and get an and one. But like that play in particular just solidified what we've been talking about for weeks with Josh Okogie, is he offensively is lacking so much. I like to look at box scores, and I know you guys too. I can't remember the last time that Josh Okogie had more than 8 points in a game.
Right.
There's been so many empty lines with Josh Okogie. 0-2-3, 0-2-1. Tonight was, I think, 0-1-1 with his couple steals and a couple blocks. Okogie needs to be moved to the bench, and I think people are starting to see that. I even think Ryan is starting to see that as well. And so that was something that was really nice to see tonight.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Chris, go ahead.
Well, I'm going to read off the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to read off the last 8 games for Josh Okogie. I'm going to just read off his field goals made in the last 8 games in order, starting with this game. 0, 1, 1, 0, 2, 1, 0, and 2. That's a starter. That's a guy that's starting for your team. He's averaging, 1 field goal made a game. And the thing is he is so frightened to even put up a shot.
Yeah.
I mean, he will have a clear lane to the basket, and he'll put a big, slow Euro step on and have the layup, and then freak out and kick it out to nobody for a turnover. I mean, he is so, like I said in the other podcast, it's like a Chuck Knobloch thing where it's just in his head. Mm-hmm. He can't throw to first, like he's just, he can't do it. Yeah, I mean, he's a confidence player. I mean, he plays with intensity, but his confidence is gone.
Right.
And, it's time. When you have a roster set up like we do, where we have a lot of young guys, a lot of guys that are all kind of similar talent levels, when a guy takes a step back, you have to be there as a coach to let the guy that's taking a step up take his role. Because if you don't, like, you're ruining the whole process of building a young team. You don't want to have a player not deserve minutes, take minutes from a guy who's deserving them. So, I mean, he has to move to the bench, and I think the writing's on the wall. He's been He's been set down in closing minutes the last couple games for McDaniels, and then the whole second half was McDaniels this game. I think that I would be very surprised if he starts another game. I said a couple weeks ago, I don't think that Culver will ever start another game for the Timberwolves when the roster's healthy. I don't think that Okogie will either.
Yeah, and so that almost means that, I mean, excluding the Anthony Edwards pick, which is the jury is still out on that, but he's looked pretty good. The Wolves kind of screwed up 2 first-round draft picks. Now, I know Josh Okogie was 20th, so it's kind of you can't necessarily for sure know, like, hey, at number 20, I'm going to get a star or a rotational starter. But still, him and Culver, I mean, 2 guys that aren't really living up to their potential. Now, let me ask you this, Chris. Do you think that right now, if looking towards the trade deadline, that Josh has any trade value to any team or not so much?
I mean, I think that he would be the type of guy that at his contract, which I think is something like $2.5 million, he's going to be a filler guy to make a trade work. That would be about it. But I mean, you know, if you got a $2.5 million guy that comes off your bench and plays hard defense for 5 or 6 minutes a game when you need him, I mean, fine. You know, that's fine.
Right.
But he's definitely not an asset that another team is looking at.
Right. Yeah. Like you were saying, I don't think he would be the cornerstone in any trade necessarily. Like even if we were looking for someone like PJ Tucker, which we talked about in a past podcast, I don't think that he would be enough. So, and do you guys have anything else on tonight's game, or should we move forward to the fourth quarter collapse against the Spurs?
Well, one thing about this game that is kind of a trend the last couple games that I think is something fans don't want to think about or say, but I'm not sure right now that Edwards is that comfortable with this starting squad. I see him not finding his shots. I see him going long stretches without touching the ball. He just looked so much more dynamic when he was on the second unit, when he knew he was the alpha male. He knew that when he was out there, he got the rock and he was taking it hard to the rim, putting up shots, maybe not efficient, but or it's just a matter of he's got to find his rhythm, which I'm fine with too, because, you know, long term you're going to want him as a starter, but it's something to keep an eye on, just how he ends up finding his role with. Unfortunately, it looks like the starter role is going to be almost by default because guys that were starting for us are starting to fall by the wayside.
And one thing I wanted to mention about the game is, does anyone, I know D'Angelo Russell shot pretty well from the field, 7 for 13, 5 for 8 from 3, but 5 turnovers for D'Angelo Russell tonight. And some of them were pretty bad turnovers. Some of them were pretty ugly turnovers. So, Jared, any worries about that from D'Lo, or is that just him trying to run an offense without Cat?
Yeah, so I think that that D'Lo absolutely can take some criticism for his turnovers in clutch situation. He had a couple tonight in clutch situations. But one thing that I wanted to mention was I was watching this game pretty closely around the 9-minute mark, and I know you have to give your guys a break, but there was a play in this game where Rubio, so Vanderbilt rolled and he tried to lob one up to Vanderbilt and it was like way over his head. And Vanderbilt kind of looked at him like, dude, what the hell are you doing? and I kind of thought the same thing. And when I was watching that, I'm like, all right, Saunders, let's get D'Lo back in here. Let's not close with Rubio. And he waited till about the 5:30 mark before he did it. And that's just something that I kind of wanted to pay a little bit more closer attention to going forward is, when does our closing lineup start? Does it start at 6 minutes? Does it start at 8 minutes? Does it start at 9 minutes? I was a little bit frustrated with Rubio after that one. He obviously didn't have the greatest game in the world to begin with, but I understand that you have to give your guys a little bit of rest. So I think that you could see Rubio run a little bit longer in the second quarter opposed to to opening the fourth. And then you could see D'Lo subbing out maybe earlier in the third, around the 4 or 5 minute mark, and then getting him back in there for the whole fourth quarter. Just rotational stuff that I thought was kind of interesting. Because, like I said, I was frustrated after that pass by Rubio, and Vanderbilt looked back at him like, I don't care how long you've been in the league, I'm never going to catch that. So
Right, yeah, I remember that play. That was frustrating. And yeah, to your point, I mean, D'Lo and the starters did come in and build a nice little lead there in the third quarter, but then with the second string in, they kind of fumbled it away a little bit. But yeah, pretty good third quarter for the Wolves tonight, and yeah, just kind of fun to get a win. Kind of fun to get a win.
One thing on D'Lo is he walks a real fine line between playing with swagger and just playing sloppy, lazy basketball. And when the swagger's working, I'm sure that it's playing with swagger. I'm locked in. That's 100% what it is. But man, a lot of times I'm questioning it, and I'm thinking maybe he's just sloppy and lazy, or trying to like put on like a show, like he doesn't have to try as hard because he has so much talent or something. Mm-hmm. The last two fourth quarters, which we'll get into the other one, he lost the ball right across half court, just was sloppy dribbling, and the guy just took it from him both times. Sloppy passes out of pick and rolls. I mean, when he does pass, he's got to tighten up, man. I mean, and there's been a lot of conversation where if you read between the lines where guys are saying, after the games, there's talk about, late game offense and stuff like this. And they're not saying, hey, D'Lo is being a greedy ball hog, but they're saying D'Lo is being a greedy ball hog. And I don't know, man. I really like D'Lo. I really do. But I don't like what I've been seeing of him of late. I don't know. And about the rotations, Ryan is almost locked into 6 minute mark. Like if it's not 6 minutes, it's 5 minutes and 30 seconds. Every quarter is when he switches guys in and out. It's like clockwork.
Yeah, it's almost go ahead, Jared.
I was just gonna say, so like we were talking about rotational stuff and how much we've been disappointed with Okogie. Our second unit has been bad for as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
Even in the Kevin Love days, the second unit was horrible, and it has been for a long time. And you can move a guy like Okogie where you're going to struggle with the second unit, but he can bring defensive presence, which might elevate the second unit to not get completely waxed when they're in there. So I kind of like that idea of Okogie being with the second unit, even though he's not a very skilled offensive player, but that gives more keys to, a guy like Anthony Edwards that, he's been starting, but he can go to the bench and he can fling it.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're third in the NBA in bench scoring. I mean, our bench is doing okay. They just might be giving up as much. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and kind of to Chris's point when he said that it's almost exactly at 6 minutes when he switches up teams. It's almost kind of like when you're playing probably third grade basketball when at a certain time the coach goes, okay, other guys you can go in, and then you go in for 3 or 4 minutes, and the next it's just a whole change of the platoon. So I kind of want to ask a fun question. It's not in the outline. I just kind of thought of it. Who is one? And I'm not talking about Kevin Garnett. I'm not talking about Kevin Love. I'm not talking about star players. But who is one role player from the past that you wish you could take from the past from the Timberwolves and place them on this team? and I'll give you a minute to think, but on this team, I would love to have someone like a Wally Szczerbiak on this team because he's someone who could hit some threes. I think he could form a nice, almost fourth piece to the starting rotation. But so I'll ask you guys, who is one Timberwolves role player? Like I said, not Love or Garnett. Who's one role player you'd love to have on this particular team? And I'll start with you, Jared.
Yeah. So I love this question because back in the day I was an Anthony Peeler guy. And,
okay.
Anthony Peeler would be my pick solely because this team, what they want to do is they want to run and gun and they want to shoot threes. Anthony Peeler is the perfect guy for that. That dude, that's all he did was shoot threes. He wanted to shoot threes all the time, and I just think he'd be a great fit for the kind of the offense that we run nowadays compared to back then. So Anthony Peeler would be my pick hands down, but I'm a little biased because I was a huge Anthony Peeler guy.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I'd like to see him too. Chris, who would be your guy?
Maybe Tom Gugliotta.
Ooh.
Give me a hard-nosed power forward that's going to just kind of grind it out in there. Maybe who was the guy? Who was that big the shot blocking guy who shot 3-pointers from I think
Not Rod, you're not talking Rasho, right?
No,
okay.
May have passed away on a train tracks.
Eddie Griffin?
I loved Eddie Griffin or something like that. That kid, I mean, we're talking role players, man. But an actual quality player, I would say Tom Gugliotta.
Okay. Fun story about Eddie Griffin. Do you guys remember at Target Center right next to it used to be a GameWorks?
Yes.
I do remember that.
Yeah. So one time I went to GameWorks. This was when I was a kid. I went to GameWorks with my dad, and there was someone at the bar that looked familiar, and I guess it was Eddie Griffin. And my dad asked me, "Hey, do you want to go up to him and get an autograph?" And I was like, "No, not really." like he didn't hear it, obviously. I hope he didn't hear it, but I don't know. Right, but
probably not.
Right, like I don't want to go to a player at the bar and ask for an autograph, even if it is a tacky place like GameWorks. I don't necessarily want to be the one to do that, but yeah. So moving forward, those were some good answers. I think we're gonna keep doing that, just like random questions here and there, just to kind of spice up the podcast a little bit. But moving forward here, we got to kind of talk negative about the Spurs game, kind of the fourth quarter collapse, and we'll start with you, Chris. What happened to the Wolves in the fourth quarter against the Spurs?
Oh boy, what was it, man? I mean, we went 3 minutes. I remember I was watching it, and about at the 7-minute mark when we sub guys in, we just got done with a 3-minute run with no points. They went on a 17-2 run. We tried 3 different guys defending DeRozan. None of it worked.
We can't seem to stop him. Like, we just can't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we had Ricky and D'Lo again on the court together with Ricky not being the ball handler. Like, what's the point? It came down to D'Lo, and this is something I said a while ago on here, where I'm hoping this doesn't happen, but I'm worried about it. That the energy between the stars, being Karl Anthony Towns and D'Lo, and mind you, I don't know what happens obviously in the locker room, but how often do you see Karl Anthony Towns publicly speaking or being a cheerleader for the Wolves? Almost never right now. Same as D'Lo. But like these young guys have all this spirit, and they're the ones that are kind of like driving the team right now. And I'm hoping it's not a stars versus team kind of aspect, but it felt like that in that fourth quarter. It felt like D'Lo was like, "Okay, guys, I'm gonna save the team," and he didn't. Anthony Edwards was playing well. Didn't touch the ball. Well, he touched the ball once in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, on a rebound.
A bucket. it just was pretty much an all-around horribly played quarter, which is miserable because the first 3 quarters we looked smooth.
Mm-hmm.
Like Rubio looked great. It was one of his best games he was playing. And Layman played good. We were playing simple. Like a couple of weeks ago, or a couple games ago, Rubio had after I think one of our other collapses, Rubio said we got to get back to just A, B's, and C's of basketball. And other than that pass to Vanderbilt today, that was just this lob that had no chance of being successful, he's been cutting his like stupid passes down and just kind of making easy plays. And that's what we were doing. We were just playing good basketball. And then all of that stopped in the fourth quarter. I don't know. I think D'Lo took 7 of the last 10 shots I saw.
Mm-hmm.
That can't happen. That can't happen.
Right. And to his defense, from what I saw, I was kind of half watching the game. I kind of watched it later. Towards the end, he did hit a few jumpers, but it wasn't enough to salvage it. Also, I want to mention the Spurs. I mean, and we'll talk about whether or not we should make a run at things or just tank at this point, but the Spurs, they're one of those teams that we might need to beat out or might need a tiebreaker for the 10th seed. Now, I know that seems far off right now because we're 6-16, but still, I mean, you win a game here, you win a game there. Let's say you win 2 against Oklahoma City, then you're right back in it. But Jared, what was your analysis of that Spurs game, the fourth quarter or even before that?
Yeah, so like Chris was saying, I thought that. So I watched. I'll break it down. I basically watched halfway through the second quarter up until about the beginning of the fourth quarter, and then I checked out for about 8 minutes because I had some stuff to do at work.
That was smart.
I came back and I looked up because when I quit watching the game, we were up by 15, and I come back and DeRozan's at the free throw line with like 2 minutes left, and the time might not be exact, but there's it's 103-101 and we're losing by 2, and I'm like, what the hell happened? Like, right. I've been gone for 8 minutes of game time, and now all of a sudden we're down by a ton, and it's frustrating to see because in the first half when I was watching, Rubio played the best I thought he's played all year. He was making passes, he was rebounding, he was running the floor. Rubio looked fantastic in the first half from what I saw, and then we come down to the end, and even the last shot, I mean, it was so predictable. Like, D'Lo gets the ball up top, and there's like 20 seconds left, and we're dribbling around, and he takes an off-balance 3, which, I mean, I know D'Lo can make shots pretty much from wherever, but I'm like, that's the best we could do. That was our best possible turn-up look. Like, come on now. And so I was pretty
shot that fell tonight.
It is, but looking back at it, I'm like, man, like that just seems lazy to me.
Right. Yeah, but the other thing about tonight's D'Lo shot is it wasn't really off balance. It was kind of in rhythm. Was the way that I saw it. But yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
And what was good was leading up to that D'Lo shot tonight was Nas got a post feed where he put a couple little shake on and hit a little hook. Layman was involved. Edwards was involved. Like it wasn't just D'Lo. Like I said, 7 out of 10 shots. It was everyone else involved. So now the other guys are kind of staying involved. Like there's just a better flow to everything when D'Lo has it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with you. So the Timberwolves, they sit now at 6-16. Actually, what's crazy, looking at the standings, the team above us is not the Oklahoma City Thunder. It's the Dallas Mavericks. Quick side note, what's going on with the Mavericks this year?
I don't know.
Like what? Like you have, and the thing is, they have Kristaps back.
And he's playing okay again.
Yeah, he's done well.
I kind of think Luka and Rubio were hanging out at the resort eating too much.
Yeah.
They both kind of look like they're not quite into mid-season shape right now.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you this about the Mavericks is they've lost 6 in a row, and they've lost to some good teams, and they've lost to some bad teams. I mean, they lost to the Rockets. I mean, that's not that's not something you want to tip your cap at when you're looking back at where we went wrong this week. But they've also lost to the Jazz a couple times. They've lost to the Suns recently, and then I think the real concern for the Mavericks, as just a complete side note, is they got blown out by the Warriors.
They did.
They gave almost 150 points to the Warriors, who didn't have Wiseman, they didn't have Looney, they didn't have Pascal. So you guys know that I'm a fantasy guy, but their center for 36 minutes of that game, well, it wasn't 36, but I think he got to like 29 or 30 due to blowout run, but it was Draymond Green. He played center for them, and he dished like he used to. So that might be something, if you're a Warriors fan, looking forward to see maybe Draymond Green at the 5 again.
How about Kelly Oubre Jr., though? He went out for 40. How do you let Kelly Oubre Jr. go out for 40? Now, I know he's a good player, but still.
He's been terrible this year.
He's been awful this year.
Yeah.
He's got talent.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does. So, okay, like I was saying, the Timberwolves, so the situation that they're in, they are last in the West, but they don't necessarily have the worst record. In fact, I think they have the 3rd worst record in the league. Their pick is top 10 protected. So I got to ask you guys this.
Top 3 protected.
Yeah. Top 3. That's what thank you. That's what I meant to say. In your opinion, should the Wolves tank or try to make the 10 seed, in your opinion? And we'll start with you, Jared. Just flat out, what do you think they should do?
Well, I don't think we can enter a tank mode until we see this team at 100%.
Right.
Like we talked about last week, we're still missing Cat. And Cat is one of the best players in the NBA. He's a top 10 player. And until we get him back, we really don't know. I mean, I think 2-2 with Cat and D'Lo on the floor together in their career together. I think the jury's still out on that, so I'm not willing to enter tank mode yet, solely based on we haven't seen enough of those two. And so if we start winning a couple games here, I know last podcast I talked about these next 4 or 5 games, which was the road trip. I said if we go 1-4, it's time to start entering tank mode.
Right.
And if we don't, then I'm still waiting to be a little patient. It's a shorter season, 72 games. But yeah, I think that the jury's still out on our team when it's 100%. And I'm trying not to be a homer, but I think this team can still make a little bit of a push here. They got a pretty soft schedule, so
right. Yeah, and I'm 2 ways on this, because at one way, Cade Cunningham and Jalen Suggs look so good. Like they look like the 2 consensus guys. Like, for on a kind of a side note, I don't see anybody beating Gonzaga this year. I think they're too good in college basketball. I don't see anyone. Right. But also, Cade Cunningham looks amazing. I mean, he's got Oklahoma State on playing primetime games. That's amazing. That's an amazing feat for Oklahoma State basketball. But on the other hand, you don't want to waste Karl Anthony Towns' prime. You don't want to waste another year of Karl Anthony Towns' prime. So, yeah, I don't think you tank, but I got to say, Cunningham and Jalen are very tempting. Chris, what's your take on this?
It's one of those things where I don't think we're going to have to worry about it right away, because I think it'll be decided for us.
Okay.
We'll either lose enough games where it's going to be like, you know what, at this point, yeah, we're going to do this. But, I mean, another thing to think about, like I said, it's top 3 protected. So let's say we finish with the worst record in the entire NBA. Mm-hmm. You still only have a 40% chance to stay in the top 3.
Right.
That's not a lock. And if you finish, let's say, at the 8th spot in the draft, the 8th worst record, you've got a 20% chance of being in the top 3. So it's really not that much. I mean, it's different, but it's not like it's that much different. So I think it was in 2018, we finished about 10 games under 500, and that was right around the 8, 9, 10 spot in the draft. Right now we're 10 games under 500. So if we go 500 for the rest of the season, which we said we kind of were that sort of team,
right,
we'll probably be right around, the 8, 9 spot in the draft, which is right about where you'll have 20% chance at being there. I mean, if we're really a 500 team, being 10 games under in a West that's so competitive, usually, it's going to be hard to pull out of that hole. I mean, to be honest about being a playoff team, with as many question marks as we have.
Right.
I mean, let's say Karl Anthony Towns comes back next game, which I doubt he will, but let's say he does. I mean, he's not going to be 100%.
Right.
Like, he's now been pretty much off for 5 weeks, like all but 2 games in 5 weeks. Like that kid's going to be, he's not going to be sharp. We do have, like I said last podcast, we had the third hardest schedule so far. So, I mean, that's obviously going to flip. So we're going to have an easier schedule. But, we're 50 days away from the trade deadline. Unless something miraculous happens there, I don't think tank or not tank's going to have to be an issue. I think we're just going to probably lose. We're probably going to be a sub 500 team from here on out. We'll probably end up, creeping up the standings a little bit, but we'll probably end up in the, number 6, 5, 6 spot in the draft lotto. And then it's all going to come down to how the balls fall.
Right.
And talking about some of those guys, I'm a big draft guy. I love the draft. I love watching prospects. And I'm not in love with these prospects as much as like the national media is. I've only watched a couple games of Cade Cunningham, and he seems pretty passive to me. He seems like the guy that doesn't have that like an a-hole kind of attitude, which is what you kind of need to have. Like, that's why I like Anthony Edwards. He's got that, I might be 0 for 10, but guess what? Here comes number 11, Like, we need that. I don't see that in Cade Cunningham. He's kind of got that softness to him, which I don't want on this team. Maybe Evan Mobley might be the guy to get. Long guy, power forward, kind of center-ish. They're trying to say he's Anthony Davis-like. He seems kind of soft too. I don't know. I'm not in love with this draft as much as others, but I'd rather have the pick than give it up.
What do you think of Jalen? Have you seen Jalen play much?
Yeah, I've seen him. He's fine. He reminds me of like a Chauncey Billups kind of guy. Like he knows what to do. He's, again, not explosive. Like, he's the kind of guy that I think is good, is really good, really talented, really smart, which goes really far in college. But I don't know if he has the athletic profile to push him over the edge playing at a point guard / shooting guard in the NBA. Like, that's a tough spot, man. I mean, that's a tough spot to play in the NBA. I wouldn't draft him, especially not in this team.
Really? You wouldn't draft if he was, let's say you had the second pick, Cade Cunningham goes 1, you wouldn't go Jalen 2?
So where would you play him?
I mean, he would have to find the floor. Maybe at the 3, maybe? Is he tall enough for that?
No. Well, he's definitely not physical enough. But so you've got now. Then you would have D'Lo, Beasley, Edwards, and him and Suggs. Like, how are you gonna do that? Like it just doesn't fit for our roster.
Or maybe have him come off the bench first. I mean, we started off with Edwards coming off the bench, and now he's. But maybe, yeah, I don't know.
When it comes down to it, if we get that pick 1, 2, or 3, I would bet a paycheck on that. Whoever we draft is not going to be on our roster. That's 100% traded. I don't think that Rosas has any interest in bringing in a 19-year-old kid to this team right now again.
Okay.
And One fun fact about Suggs, I don't know where most of our viewers come from, but Suggs played at Minnehaha Academy and is from St. Paul, so it's always good to talk about a hometown boy and watch him light it up somewhere and be a good player out in Gonzaga land. But there's hometown talent in this state, and that's
there is.
Fun.
If only the Gophers could have kept him, maybe we would have beat Rutgers.
What's that kid from? Who's
Chet
the top
Holmgren?
Chet.
right now?
Chet?
Yeah, Chet Holmgren. Yeah,
He's said to be the number 1 pick next year.
yeah, like that kid's good too, and it's fun to talk about hometown talent because we haven't always really had it.
Mm-hmm.
Like growing up for me, I know that Royce White was a really big prospect.
Yeah,
and he just didn't want to fly and kind of ruined his career because of that. But it's fun to talk about kids that are in this state. You know, you have Trey and Tyus Jones, who are both big prospects, and always fun to talk about the hometown love in Minnesota.
Yeah, and McKinley Wright at Colorado's going into his senior season, so maybe he has a future. I don't know. He seems like one of the best players on the Colorado team and in the conference, so maybe he has some future somewhere, maybe like a second-round pick. Also, and Gopher fans know him well, Daniel Oturu. He's doing his thing over on the Clippers. Yeah, on the Clippers.
I can't say his name, but Najee something.
Najee Harris.
Arizona. He's with the Jazz.
Oh, Zeke Najee.
I got a quick side note on this. I'm not a big women's college basketball guy, but Paige is actually related to a guy that I work with, and she is absolutely incredible at basketball. If you ever get a chance to watch her play basketball,
I've watched some highlights.
Yeah, she is unbelievable for a female basketball player. So I just thought I should drop her in here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a good plug. Maybe a future Lynx. Who knows? Is that how you say it? A future Lynx or Lynx player? Or I don't know how you say it.
She put up 30 and 5 the other day as a freshman, and they put her up on SportsCenter the other night and put her side by side with Diana Taurasi, and it's like, damn, this chick is good.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah.
Also, one more we'll mention on North Carolina right now. Kerwin White, I think, doing his thing over in North Carolina from Hopkins. He's starting for them and doing good things. But yes,
and we got Michael Hurt for Duke.
Oh yeah,
he was like a number. Matthew, is it Matthew or Michael? One of them. He was like a number 5 recruit in the nation. He'll probably be drafted somewhere.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the Gophers got his bad brother, so who was terrible. I think the Gophers got Michael. They got Matthew. So
could be. Yeah.
But anyway, moving forward, Jared, let's do your kind of fantasy minute. Who are some guys that fantasy owners in basketball should go after, or maybe some sleepers out there?
Yeah, so I was so prepared for this like an hour ago, and now I kind of forgot what I was going to say.
It's okay.
The number one guy that I'm looking to add this week, he's actually out with protocol tonight. He actually plays for the Thunder. Is Theo? I think his last name is Maldon. He's from France. He's a rookie. I think he's 19 years old. George Hill is out for 4 weeks, and last week I talked about really looking at injuries and who is going to benefit from that. So Theo Maldon, I'm going to say. I'm not 100% sure on the pronunciation, but
that sounds about right.
He is my top ad this week, solely based on the fact that he's going to start for this team for the next month. So you can pick up him and starting him. You can look at other guys that are benefiting from injuries. I don't know which Bogdanovich brother it is, but it's the one from Atlanta. He doesn't have a timetable for his return yet. Obviously, guys like Kevin Huerter are already owned, but you can look at a guy like Cam Reddish, who might be available in some leagues. You can pick him up. He's going to see around 30 minutes a game when he's healthy. Another sleeper that I'm kind of looking at right now, it doesn't excite me, but it's Aaron Baines has made his way back into the starting lineup for the Raptors and has played a decent amount of minutes. This is obviously a little bit deeper league of stuff. And then if you're looking into like dynasty leagues, I know they're not super popular in NBA, but I play in one dynasty league, and makes things kind of fun because you're looking for young talent. So a guy like Theo Maldon would be a good ad, or maybe it's Tyler. I don't remember his first name. And the dude from Auburn that plays for the Magic, his last name is Okogie, I believe. Yeah. Aaron Gordon's going to be out for a set period of time too, and that's important to us because I know that we were talking about trade possibilities for him. He could be getting healthy around the trade deadline, but a guy like him is going to see around 20 minutes. His big thing is he's in foul trouble all the time. But if you're in deeper leagues or if you're in dynasty leagues and you see a guy like Aaron Gordon get moved at the trade deadline, which is a real possibility to not just us, but the rest of the league, if he's healthy, you could see a rookie like him in deeper leagues be a nice ad because he's going to see minutes and he's not a bad player at all.
Awesome.
One thing I'd mention is depending on the style of league you have, like I play in a head-to-head league, you might be getting to the point now where some teams are falling behind the race for playoffs, and they might be dropping players that, are hurt but are better players or maybe not quite there yet. Like in my league, Danilo Gallinari just got cut, and I picked him up because he just got back from being hurt. He's kind of only playing 20 minutes a game right now, so he's not really up to speed yet. But the team that cut him needs some, instant impact to kind of move up the standings to make sure they can get in a playoff picture. And if you're a guy that is locked in the 1, 2, 3 seed kind of thing already, looking like you're doing fine, taking a shot on one of these guys that have big upside and, dumping one of your, flyers that you have on your bench, that's what I would do right now.
Yeah, and guys like in my dynasty league, Hamid Diallo is available, and I'm in a 12-team dynasty league. That's a guy that I'm going to add just because, like I said, George Hill's going to be out for 4 weeks. The dude's going to see run. Another sleeper ad that I could add in would be Hassan Whiteside in some leagues, and it sounds ugly, but hear me out. Hassan Whiteside's going to be traded soon, and the team that he ends up with could be a lot more beneficial to the team that he's on currently now. So you could probably get ahead of the game and add a guy like Hassan Whiteside. I know he has ties to possibly Brooklyn, which I think he would become an elite player adding off a waiver wire if he's playing on Brooklyn. Just keep an eye on news. News is so key in NBA. I share a couple articles that I write with goingfor2.com, and I share them with you guys. And one of my latest article that I wrote, I listed off about 15 players that I liked for the day, and within a snap of a fingers, I liked 2 players on the whole article because Oladipo was ruled out and John Wall was ruled in, and so news is super key when it comes to fantasy NBA. So always keep an eye on the news.
Absolutely, yeah. Keeping an eye on the news, keeping an eye on what's going on, and taking a look at what's going on with the Timberwolves moving forward the next week before we do another podcast. 4 games. Again, of course, tomorrow night at Oklahoma City. Hopefully that's a W, but you never know. Shea could come back. But honestly, if it's the same team that we saw tonight, should be a W. If in a perfect world, that's a W. At Dallas.
It better be.
Yeah, it better be. At Dallas, struggling team right now, but as we were mentioning, one of those teams that you might have to beat to if you're going to go after that 10 seed, one of the teams that you may have to go on the road and maybe upset, but honestly, I could see Luka running wild in that one. Versus the Clippers, I'm just going to write that off as a loss. I think you got, particularly if we don't have Cat, I think a lot of this kind of rotates around if we have Cat or not. But, I don't think we're beating the Clippers even with Cat. But also, and then at Charlotte, and that'll be a fun one because you get to see Anthony Edwards versus LaMelo Ball. basically,
that will be fun.
Yeah, that'll be. So which game? Let's go with this. Which game this week are you most excited for? And let's start with you, Chris. What game are you most excited for out of those 4?
For me, it's Charlotte, and it's easy. I've watched a handful of Charlotte's games. I love watching them play. I really like the flair they play with. I really like Rozier, and I like Graham. Graham is last year Graham was one of my favorite basketball players. He's really been in a slump this year, but when you play them, it'll be fun to watch because they do something like we should be doing with Beasley and D'Lo. I think last year they had something like 80% of Graham's assists, which he had like 8 assists a game, were to Rozier. Like the guard-to-guard assists on their team are super high because they just play so well together. So that'll be a fun team. Watching Edwards and Ball go at it because they're both going to try to just show out. Mm-hmm. That's going to be fun. That's my game.
Okay, and then Chris, you agree? Or sorry, Jared, you agree? Is that the one you're looking forward to? Or are you looking forward to Dallas, LA, or Oklahoma City, or Charlotte?
I'm actually going to take it a step further. So the easy pick is Charlotte because obviously we want to see LaMelo versus Edwards and see who won the draft and all this and that. But I'm going to take it a step further to the Sunday game on the 14th, Valentine's Day. Make sure you get your honey something. But I'm going to take it to the Raptors just because I think the Raptors are such a fundamental team. Like, they don't do anything exceptional, but they do everything well. And I want to see how we match up against a team like the Raptors, who have an inside presence in Siakam, even though he can float around on the key. They have 2 good guards, much like us. You put Cat against obviously Baines would probably match up with him, but I think that matchup in particular would be great to see us be competitive in because I think it's a team that is very not similar to how we are, but like similar strong points in
skill
we have
level.
guards and we have inside presence and so I want to see kind of how we match up with a team like that, like a team that likes to shoot threes in Lowry and Van Fleet that are both good guards. We have D'Lo, and then they have Siakam on the inside. We have Cat, and I think that game just is kind of low key, kind of fun because I think that it just kind of matches up well. I mean, Toronto's a much better team than we are. Don't get me wrong, but I think if we can match up and play well with a team like that, I think that could be a good, strong push forward.
Right.
Who do you think will try to sell more fouls in that game, Lowry or D'Lo?
That's going to still be Lowry.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Lowry as well. And so my favorite, obviously, Charlotte. You got LaMelo versus Anthony Edwards. I could see Anthony Edwards going off like he did against Wiseman. Honestly, I could see Anthony Edwards, if they somehow are on each other and they're in the paint, I could see him try to posterize LaMelo like he did on Wiseman once again.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. But also, I would say I'm excited to see the LA game, but I just think we're going to get killed. To be honest,
Kawhi. Just a quick question: who guards Kawhi? My answer would be nobody.
McDaniels.
That's who it's going to have to be. It's going to have to be someone that can. And I think that's what's scary about LA is not only that, but they also have Paul George who can shoot pretty damn good from time to time.
A sneaky good pickup for them. I know we were just talking about Charlotte, but sneaky good pickup for them in the offseason was Nicholas Batum. I
love Batum.
Yeah, I remember I wanted him years ago when the Wolves were in the running for him, but obviously it didn't work out too well in Charlotte, but a sneaky good pickup for them.
This is going to be a super awkward comparison because they play 2 totally different positions, but he reminds me so much of Tim Duncan, just does everything well, smart, rebounds the basketball. Obviously, they play 2 different positions, so it's not the best comparison in the world, but mentally, those two kind of carry themselves the same way. And I've always been a Batum fan. When he gets minutes, he plays well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's where. So I think if the Wolves can, particularly, you got to win tomorrow night, and then if they can go 2-2 this week, I think, particularly with Cat coming back, if he does come back, maybe we can even go 3-1. But if we can go 2-2, I feel like we're in pretty good position going forward and able to build some momentum and just not tank. So, yeah, guys, thanks so much for joining us. Chris, thanks so much for joining me again.
No problem, man.
Awesome. And Jared,
end on a good note. I'm gonna put a little fun fact in everyone's ear.
Go ahead.
Right now, in isolation play, Anthony Edwards is in the 100th percentile in the NBA, meaning he's literally one of the top 5 people in the entire NBA in isolation scoring.
Well, there you go.
That's a good thing going forward. Last time I ended on keep an eye on him. It's going to be fun to watch this kid grow. I'm going to tell you tonight, he averages 1.55 points per play on isolation, which is, like I said, about as good as you can do in the entire NBA. Nobody's better than him. So, of course, it's a small sample size, but that's just something to chew on for the night.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's what we want to see. Someone on this team who can create offense, because we know that Okogie can't do it. We know that a lot of people can't do it. So something good for you to chew on tonight. And Jared, thanks so much for joining me as always.
As always, guys, I have a blast doing this. I'll leave you with a fun fact since Chris put me on the spot here, but I got one on the top of my head. One thing that I heard on the radio when I was driving home from work the other night, listening to the game, Alan Horton of CBS Sports Radio, which Timberwolves affiliate, said that D'Angelo Russell on wide open threes is shooting 51% on wide open threes. And why is that significant? Well, when you had a guy like Cat coming back into the game, you might see some more wide open threes coming up in the next couple weeks here.
That's true. That's a good point. And awesome. Yeah, well, thank you so much, guys. This has been another Everything's Coming Up Timberwolves podcast. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, go Wolves.